The Crescent Moon Club, in association with Cyclops Entertainment, in conjunction with ABT, presents Omnibus Unlimited, a roundtable discussion of provocative subjects which must be addressed. Radiovision for the 21st century. Hello again, everyone. I'm Laurence Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited. Tonight, our topic of discussion is out-of-body experiences. With me to address this subject is Tom Murray, psychic healer and medical technician from the Columbus Medical Associates in Boston. Thanks for being here tonight, Tom.
Again, Larry, it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope we have a good learning experience.
Okay. Dan Murray, ufologist from Berlin, Massachusetts. Dan, thanks for being here tonight.
Looking forward to a good show, Larry.
Brian Nobile, youth specialist from Wilmington, Massachusetts. Thanks for being here tonight, Brian.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
And, of course, our own producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan, who will be chiming in as need be. Hello, Larry. And thanks for being here, John. Out-of-body experiences. When one brings up that topic, immediately one begins to think about dreams. You know, you dream of flying, or you dream of being somewhere else, and sometimes these dreams are quite vivid. And while we're not talking about dreams tonight per se, it is interesting that there is some parallel. Now, to kick us off with our show about out-of-body experiences, our own producer John Horrigan will give us a tale. John, take it away.
Thank you, Larry. It comes from Strange World by Frank Edwards. He flew through the air. Is it possible for a human being to be suddenly transported over great distances almost instantaneously without harm? Let us take a case from the official records of Mexico, a case which was never solved. On the morning of October 25th, 1593, on the plaza before the palace in Mexico City, the guard was being changed. In the bright sunshine, one soldier stood out from the rest, and small wonder, for he was dressed in a resplendent costume that was quite unlike the others. He carried a different type of musket, and it was plain that he was confused. When taken in for questioning, he told Mexican authorities, "My name is Gil Perez. As to standing sentry here, why, I am merely doing as nearly as possible what I was ordered to do. I was ordered this morning to mount guard at the doors of the governor's palace in Manila. I know very well this is not the governor's palace, and evidently I am not in Manila. Why or how that may be, I do not know. But here I am, and this is a palace of some kind, so I am doing my duty as nearly as possible." Then the soldier added, "Last night, the government of the Philippines, His Excellency Don Gomez Perez Dasmariñas, had his head cracked with an axe in the Moluccas and is dead of the blow." The soldier was told that he was in Mexico City, thousands of miles from Manila, and he could not believe it. He was questioned by the viceroy and his council, who were as baffled as the soldier himself. He was questioned by church authorities and then jailed, still a riddle to all who became involved. Had he indeed been transported from Manila to Mexico City overnight, a physical impossibility in 1593? Was he a criminal, or an insane person, or just a chronic liar? For 2 months, Soldier Perez languished in jail in Mexico City until a ship arrived from the Philippines. It brought news that Governor Dasmariñas had indeed been murdered in the Moluccas. And other passengers not only identified Soldier Perez, but recalled seeing him in Manila the day before he was arrested in Mexico City. Unable to explain what had happened to the poor fellow, the authorities carefully recorded the facts and sent him back to Manila, then, as now, an unsolved enigma of space and time.
Very interesting, John. Fascinating. Now, one of the phrases in that account was physical impossibility. Is that a physical impossibility? Dan Murray.
No, and I'll tell you why. I'll get to the exact reason why a little later. But I heard a similar story 2 weeks ago. I'd never heard that story till John just read it right now. But I'll tell you this, the one I did in an interview 2 weeks ago, which ties in with some other things. And in that one, what happened to a person I know is he was thinking about another person, a woman he knows. And he did not know where this person lived, but he wanted to see her. And he was thinking about her, and I guess he laid down and he was thinking about her, and in his mind, or in his sleep, he left his body, floated to where she was, to her bedroom, and was standing over her at her bed.
What kind of a distance are we talking about here?
Well, he didn't know where she lived at the time. And I don't want to mention names or anything. I keep my people anonymous. But what happened was, he was standing there. She woke up and saw him and asked what he was doing there, and he said, "There's no problem, go back to sleep," or something to that effect. Well, he didn't remember what happened next. He woke up the next day. Well, he ran into this woman. It was either the next day or the next week. Within a short period of time, he ran into her, and she said, "What were you doing in my bedroom last night?" He said, "Well, that's impossible for me to be in your bedroom because I don't know where you live." And she said, "But I saw you there. You were there, and you were watching over me." Since that time, she has become attached to him, not as a lover or any type of thing like that, but when she sees him, she hugs him and says, "You are my protector, you watch over me." Now I hear this story here, and I have to wonder, about some of the dreams that we have at night. Are they really dreams, or do we really have the ability to transpose ourselves?
Very interesting. Now, usually when people talk about out-of-body experiences, it's usually in the context of near-death experience. But this is not a case of that. Is that right, Tom? This is a perfectly healthy man who simply willed himself to be near her, and without even knowing where she was, he was able to succeed.
Yes, and this isn't his first experience either. And it ties
This has happened to him many times.
Yeah, and not to an individual person, though, although that ability does exist. I find a tie-in with most people that have this happen. As the interview went on, we began to get into more of these type of problems that he was having. And this was something he hadn't talked to anybody about except for an expert many years before. Psychologists and whatnot, and he was the only other person he shared it with was myself. But he had been having one over and over and over again where he would leave. Now here's the connector. And when I mean connector, I mean proof of evidence that the man is not making it up, is by my own experience and having talked to other people, keeping the stories anonymous, I'm able to compare facts. And this is what he said. Generally, when he leaves to go visit this place on a normal out-of-body experience, he always flies to the right of where he lives. In every dream that I've ever had where I'm flying and going someplace else myself, and I've had out-of-body experiences, and in every interview I've ever done with anybody who shares this type of phenomenon, they always fly to the right. The next thing that was happening to this person was fantastic, and he drew me a graph. Because he was going to visit a particular person in a particular place that was nearby. Now he knows where he lives very well, and he cannot identify this place. But it's very beautiful, very nice. He says it was the weather was perfect. It didn't matter how you were dressed. You went in, and he says you could see stars, but you felt like you were inside. And he went on, and when he goes there, I stopped him at that point of the interview, and I said, when these dreams first started, or these out-of-body experiences started, were the people blonde that you would see inside? And he said yes. When he first started, it was a blonde woman, and it's always a woman that talks to you first, and a blonde guy who says nothing. And they would lead him into a room, into this door. There's a certain type door The door, he doesn't know how it works. One minute you're outside of it, the next minute you're on the inside, and he's not sure how you go through this door. And that's where I find the door is the big key here. And he goes in, he's told to be all right, and he lays down. I says, do you still see this blonde lady now? And it's no, now it's a brunette. And I said, guest is aged at about 61. I says, you were around 5, under 10 years old when you first had these experiences. He said, yes, he was under 10, about 7. And I said, so that puts the time difference at about 50 years. The other person is no longer here. You were in a mothership from another planet. That's where you were.
Very interesting. John, you wanted something. You wanted to say something.
Well, I guess this is out-of-body experience. What I read, I think, is an account of teleportation, where this Mexican guard or Filipino guard was inadvertently teleported. There's an account I'd like to read later on if the conversation does steer towards teleportations and whatnot, because out-of-body experience and teleportation are two different things. If we do go that route, I have one of Sister Mary Agreda, or the great phrase, we can save it for another show. As far as what happened there, if I could just have everybody's opinion on what they think happened to that guard. Dan has expressed his opinion. I'd like to hear Tom Murray, what he thinks happened to that guard that day.
Gee, John, having not been there, it's hard to say. However, yeah, I think that would be teleportation, which, for instance, an out-of-body experience, your body's still there. You're lying in bed, you're lying on the couch. Your spirit or astral body is out traveling around. Your astral body can go to the Akashic record and look up any historical fact in the past, present, or future. And you can also use your etheric double. Part of your etheric double would remain with the body to help it function.
Which is something we talked about before in an earlier show.
Yes, and your etheric double, part of that, can materialize a manifestation of you in another place. Dan, you mentioned the phenomenon where the woman was sleeping and a man that was thinking about her appeared in her bedroom, or an image of him appeared, and they were both at the same time actually thinking about each other. And again, this is, as we were mentioning about health being able to be generated through the etheric double into the physical body, again, the etheric double in the dream state is very susceptible to the dream state and to the influence of other people. So when you're sleeping, just as I said, the energy that you emit, a person really concentrating on, let's say these two people were very friendly. The gentleman emitting a lot of energy, his waves, his vibrations, were probably picked up by her etheric double, much like a radio receiver will pick up a signal and then amplified his image for her in her bedroom. Well, so yes, there's a manifestation or a double image of him in the bedroom, even as his body is in his own home.
Well, but I might add that Dan did not say that she was thinking about him. He was simply thinking about her, but you're suggesting that even though she wasn't thinking about him, her etheric double picked up that transmission and she was able to receive it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Brian, you wanted to add something.
As far as I know, anybody's able to leave the body and go off and have an experience in the astral form. That is true, right, Tom? As far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I think just about every single human being that's ever walked the face of the earth and ever will astrally travels. It's just like you ask people. Some people say, oh, I don't have dreams. Doesn't mean they don't have them, because your dream is mental activity. Now, people's brains don't stop functioning and their minds don't die when they sleep. They just don't remember their dreams. And I've taken people who I'm working with and teaching, and they'll say, oh, I don't have dreams. And I'll say, okay, from now on, you remember your dreams. And within about a week or two, they start telling me their dreams. So what they thought they never had, they didn't remember.
So what would you think would be the limitations of being an astral form? I mean, I've heard stories of people traveling to other galaxies, flying and leaving the planet Earth, or stepping into other dimensions in the astral form. How would you explain that?
In the astral form, there's no time and there's no space limitation. The astral form is time and space. Therefore, just like the TV show Star Trek, you could be beamed to anywhere in the solar system, anywhere in existence.
So in an astral form, if you wanted to be, say, back when Christ was around, you could actually be there in a spiritual form?
In a spiritual form and sense, yes. Your astral self would be there, while your physical sense is here.
Is it possible to step into other dimensions and stuff as told? Possibility?
As far as stepping, what Tom said about stepping into different times and different dimensions is so true. I often think that, and I'm going to refer to Dan on this subject, that UFOs manipulate by spiritual and energy out of body, because when these abductions, you're floated through a wall. You're still sleeping there when you're abducted, and it's a classic abduct. They float you through the wall.
Exactly. This is why I got interested in these type of things. I believe a lot of the world's psychics are on the right path, but they haven't made the connection yet. So they're slightly off beam. You have to understand telepathic powers, and you have to understand that they can communicate to anyone on this planet under any language without any problem, because they're communicating in a way that we do not understand or haven't bothered to develop, which is telepathy. Now, one step above telepathy is teleportation. So to do either one of them is only a matter of time and effort. And most people, including myself, if they even get a hint that they are that way, try to kill it. They try to change it. Plus, your brain changes as you grow and as you age, and then we add other things to it, chemicals and whatnot, that affect it.
But certainly medical science has shown that the number of nerves that you have in your brain do not increase. I mean, once you get what you have, they may get larger, but they do not, you do not get more nerves.
Medical science has shown it knows absolutely nothing about the brain.
Very interesting. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, Larry. What happens is we don't increase the number of nerves that we have. Nerves, by the way, are the longest cells of the body. But, for instance, the nerve to your little finger it's a single-celled unit. It comes all the way out from your neck. So nerves are very long. But one thing that nerves have is dozens and dozens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of what are called dendrites. Dendrites are little tiny nerve endings that go into muscle, go into organ, and also in the brain itself, which literally has billions of nerves, has many billions of these dendrites. And although nerves may die off with age, as other cells do, the dendrites continue to multiply. So you can literally have more interconnecting information centers as an older person, more information feedback than as a younger person.
So what Dan was suggesting is that medical science has once again kicked the bucket, in that these dendrites are extensions of the nerves, and as such, as they multiply, they increase the reception ability of the nerve.
They've only scratched the surface in the brain. They know very, very little. One of the things they've found out recently, according to medical science, is that the brain can change almost its shape in how you think. In other words, the nerves inside the brain itself almost reform. In other words, when you go to college, which most people call education, I call it thought control, you are trained in a new way of thinking. And this is what's one of the problems I believe in the world today, is that this college system that we set up on the Charlemagne has restricted knowledge on this planet. we've gone down a path as far as we can go, and we're not going to go much further.
We're victims of disinformation, those of us that are educated, is what you're saying, Dan. It's so true.
Yeah, but the problem is, you see, now the brain patterns of our, quote, educated, or Dan Murray term, thought-controlled leaders, is that their brains have formed a way of thinking and problem solving. I was talking to someone after church one day at a social hour, to give you an example, and I was talking to him, and he kept asking me these questions over and over and over, different questions, because he was looking for the answer he was looking for, and he was not getting it from me. And I could tell after a while that he went to Harvard University because of the line of questioning that he was trying to get to his answer from his way of training to think. And it wasn't matching up. So the poor guy left confused, and I liked him. But I finally came up with an answer that would appease him a little bit and make him happy, and he felt fine. But I knew the way he thought and how he had to think, because he could accept nothing else. The same with the brain is that I think as little children, we're not spent with enough time on learning how to expand what the brain can do. We're taught what we have to remember. Okay? We're taught rules, we're taught regulations, we're taught mathematics, we're taught a little bit of history, a little bit of geography, you remember your phone number, which are all very important things, especially at a young age. But we're not really spending any time with our children at the most advancing part of a human's brain expansion on how to expand it into areas such as telepathy, understanding dreams, or various different ways of thinking and problem solving. So we have restricted ourselves. By the time you've reached puberty, you have already been restricted in your teachings. You're already in an educational system which is further going to control it. And if you should advance before that, you'll go on to further thought control or education. You will, and those who cannot handle, quote, education and thought control, quit.
Brilliant.
You know, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
John,
Larry.
go
I just
ahead.
wanted to, John, of my college education, from what I remember, the only thing that I thought that was worthwhile was I minored in philosophy and just studying the great thinkers. And, geez, I felt that. You know, when I was studying Kant, oh, I know what he's talking about. I felt that. Or Hume, oh, I know that. I felt that. Oh, and that's about it, though. And other than that, that taught me to be a free thinker.
Well, speaking of being taught to be a free thinker, Brian Nobile, youth specialist, what do you have to add to this?
Yeah, getting back to the out-of-body experiences and stuff, I think there is very much a connection between having an out-of-body experience and ghosts. I think ghosts are very much spirits in an astral plane that do not have bodies, and just freelance throughout the world, and they don't even know that they're dead. I think pretty much. I think anybody can have an out-of-body experience. There are certain ways that you can learn how to separate yourself from the body and go to distant places and experience all this. And if everybody could, I'm sure our culture would learn a lot more about ourselves, about God, possibly. You know, learning that they do have a soul, a astral self. That explains a lot about the ethic double or so, the aesthetic double, and explains a lot about auras and how we can control ourselves, and I think that has a lot to do with how I think if we were able to control this, we would better understand ourselves and better understand how to control, say, the ethic double. So that's my little addition to the show.
Tom.
Yeah, Brian, is what you're saying is that people spend a lot of time, or Dan and John and so forth, they go to college, they read books, they get lectured to. Somebody tells you how to think, how to feel, how to be, how to exist. And as you're saying, well, if a person also, while you're studying all this material knowledge, if you took the time to develop your intuition, your inner self, your inner awareness, you'd be able to have more control over your health, more control over your destiny, more control over your life. And as you're saying, you know, these shared experiences, people would see more commonality between them, probably reducing war, things like that. Because if you and I have both had the same out-of-body experience, if we both spiritually are seeking the same truth, we're not enemies.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes left in the show here, so let's try to wrap up this the show on out-of-body experiences. Brian, why don't you wrap up your final thoughts here?
Well, I don't know about my final thoughts, but I was curious as to maybe it's possible that two people can have an out-of-body experience and actually communicate on the astral form. Maybe many people can get together and communicate, go out in the distant, galaxies and stuff. I think it's definitely something worth trying. If you were to get a book on it and look into it and read into it and maybe even try it, I don't think there's anything to fear. They pretty much tell you how to do it and how to, separate yourself. So, many people do it, and I think you should give it a try. Go out there, research it and give it a try.
Very good. Dan Murray.
Yeah, touching on what Brian said earlier on the aura, on the interview, the man mentioned an aura around people, and he could tell by looking at a person if they have that aura or not. If they don't have it, he really doesn't care about that person and doesn't worry about them. People with it, he does, and he likes and he makes a point out of taking care of them or making friends with them. I am the exact same way. I don't always see an aura, but I know right away whether I want to be bothered with someone or not.
John, your final thoughts on this subject.
The only time I think it ever happened to me is I remember dozing off, falling asleep and waking up terrified, horrified, as if my heart jumped and as if I felt as if I had left my body momentarily, but I woke myself. But pleasure being on the show, Larry.
Thank you, John. And Tom Murray, your final thoughts.
As Dan mentioned, people will have brighter or duller auras according to the way they live their lives, etc. A person that's seeking towards enlightenment, towards wisdom, towards growth, their aura will brighten, become larger, more visible. Those that just aren't interested in their own spirituality will probably have a very dull aura. And the health of your aura has a lot to do with your future health. Yes, and Brian, as you say, there are many groups that work as groups. I often work with communicating with other people on the astral plane. I use the etheric double and astral suggestion to heal people. And again, as I said, these energy fields are very susceptible to such things as emotions, and they're also susceptible to things such as hypnosis.
Very good. Dan, did you want to make one final word on these? You started this. Give me about a 30-second final word.
Yeah, I'd like to see us starting to spend some time with the young people working on these type of things, getting them to try to think and talk without talking a little bit more and expand that a little bit, because I think the ability is there. I think it's always been there. What happened to the Spanish guy, I don't know. But like I said, it's only one step away. And I think when we start doing that, it hasn't been done before. It's only started in small groups here and there. It's been crushed as a evil thing in the past. And we have to stop thinking of it as an evil ability instead of a God-given gift.
Very good. Now, if anyone out there has any questions, comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on Omnibus Unlimited, you may contact us at Omnibus Unlimited, Box 577, Dover, Massachusetts, 02030-0577. I'd like to thank our guests for appearing here tonight, Tom Murray, psychic healer and medical technician from the Columbus Medical Associates of Boston. Thanks for being here tonight, Tom.
Thank you for having me on the show, Larry.
Dan Murray, ufologist from Berlin, Massachusetts. Dan, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, and I hope nobody picks me up tonight.
Brian Nobile, youth specialist from Wilmington, Massachusetts. Brian, as usual, thanks a lot.
Once again, it was fun.
And, of course, our own producer of Omnibus Unlimited, John Horrigan. Thank you, John.
Yeah, we went over again, Lambert. Always a pleasure.
I'm Laurence, Nobile, independent researcher and host of Omnibus Unlimited, saying thank you for your attention, good night, and good luck. Omnibus Unlimited is a production of the Crescent Moon Club.
Gee, Dan, I think they just picked you up on the telephone. It's Mom.
Oh, don't say that. Oh, I hear.